recording. All right, so now let me go get the. We'll see if it saved it. I don't know if it did or not. Let's see. So we were doing the multi-step. Is that this page?
No.
Sure.
That was 10 and plus 3.
Well, I think that's it fully solved out. Oh, no, that's fine. I'll just erase what we have again. So what Greg caught that I had made a mistake intentionally because students keep making this mistake. Boy, that's debatable. There we go. I had written down just 24 here again because I keep seeing students do math with a term that has a variable in it, and then all of a sudden the variable just magically disappears and the answer doesn't have the variable anymore. This, if you're multiplying and this term has an n in it, your answer better have that n. I mean, way too often. Sometimes you guys just write something down from one line to the next and the variable just disappears. You can't keep losing those variables. That will kill you on this quiz. Because then you're going to combine the wrong things. Like if I didn't have the n here, I'd wind up combining the two 24s instead of this -10 and this 24n. So it kills you two times. First of all, you did the first part wrong. You didn't write 24n, but then you combined the wrong two things. So you got to make sure that if there's the only time the variable disappears is when we make it disappear, which I'll show you in a second. All right, so back to. Oh, please. All right, so I've already underlined the n because if you're looking at the step sheet, we're on step 2 is all. We only did step 1, distributive property. I need to look on the left side for terms I can combine, same letter, or no letter at all, meaning they're just constants. Well, I do have the same letter. I have an n and an n. When I combine those, I get 14n. I still have that 24, so I got rid of this when I combined it. Don't do anything under the equation at this point. This is where I spent some time saying we're not ready to say something like this. Subtract 24n, subtract 24n. That is totally wrong. Totally wrong. You do not do anything right underneath the equation until you're at step 4 on your sheet. We are not at step 4 yet. We're on step 2. So that is wrong, 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 wrong. I'll tell you when you can start doing something underneath the equation. Like when we get to it, I'll show you what it'll look like. We're almost there actually. So I add 20, or I bring 24 down because we didn't do anything with it. I have the -6n plus 24 on that side. This is step 4. So if you look at step 4 on your pink sheet, look to the left in the left-hand margin. It gives you an example of what that should look like. You should have one term with a variable and a constant on the left. You should have one term with a variable and a constant on the right. This is the first time you ever do anything right underneath the equation. Everything else, you're just combining like terms. Like I just take this -10n and this 24. If you need to combine it somewhere, don't write it underneath the equation. I told you, do it in a separate part of your paper. Say, well, if I have 24n and I'm subtracting 10n, well, that gives me 14n. And then write that in the equation. Don't try to do that math in the equation. It will mess you up, guaranteed. Thing out of one day when we did the big problem, one person successfully did the math in the equation and still got the rest of the answer. Everybody else messed it up. We threw them all. So not until you have this step. This is what I call Mr. Gill's 3-step equation. A term with a variable and a constant. A term with a variable and a constant on both sides. Now read step 4. You should all, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. You should all know what to do right now. You should be able to solve the rest of the problem. If you can't, you're going to struggle to finish on time. So look at step 4. tells you exactly what to do from this type of problem, which is why I'm emphasizing this type of problem. Tells you what side to start on, which term to start with, what math to do, everything. I'm going to start doing it in a minute. I might call on some people if you think you know the next step, or I might just have somebody read the next step. Yeah, I will start the recording. Did you know what to do? Next step? Just the very next step. What do you want you to do next step? All right, then I want you to read it out. Ryan's going to read out. So you're at step 4. Get a loud voice.
X. Figure the term, the variable on the right side of the equation, add or subtract opposite.
So what side did it say to start on?
Right side.
That's pretty simple, right? I can tell right from left. That's based on where the equal sign is. So the right side would be the side with the negative 6n plus 24. Which term did it say to start with? It said the one with the variable, right? Well, that should be pretty easy to pick out where the variable is. The variable's in the negative 6n part. There's the variable. That's pretty easy. What else did it say? Said we want to get rid of it, and we want to get rid of it by adding or subtracting, and it says do the opposite. Well, to me, if I got a negative in front of that 6n, the opposite would to put addition. There you go. Tells you everything you need to know how to do at that stage. Now, you then have to remember what? If I did that on the right side, and when you do it, don't put it underneath just the number. If you have a term with a letter in it and you're adding it to the other side, put it underneath the term that also has the letter in it. Like a lot of people will put that underneath the 24. Well, that doesn't do it. You can't combine 24 and then a term with a letter. So put it underneath the one you can combine it with. It makes it cleaner for you, easier for me to grade to make sure you get some credit on it. So when I combine those two, I'm going to ignore all of that, the problem. So just ignore that. Now, what's it say on step 5? Everybody look at it. Do we? Got a two-step equation?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Term with a variable and a constant on one side, just a constant on the other side. Solve it. You should be able to do that. Now, if you need the steps, go back to the top of the page. Top of the page is back to two-step equations. And it tells you that on your sheet. It says go back to the top of the page for two-step equations. But hopefully you're getting to the point where you don't even need that anymore. So I'll give you a minute, so not even a minute, I'll give you a few more seconds to do that one on your own. Now you will get a little bit of a weird answer. That's fine. I'll just say nothing is zero. If you have nothing, you have the number 0. That will make sense as you solve, hopefully. 0 is the mathematical version of nothing. That doesn't make sense on this all in 10 seconds. So when we solve a two-step equation, again, up at the top, it says, I need to start with the constant. Well, we said, why don't we find the variable term first? And that'll tell us where the constants are. Because the variable term's easy. If I'm solving for n, the term with the n is the variable term. So that's the variable term. Everything else is a constant. Well, everything else is a constant, and I need to start with the constant on the same side as the variable term. I have to start with this 24 that's on the same side as the 20n, on the left side. Well, then it says the first time you do math, it's what you should have written down a minute ago, or you should already have it really. I need to do either addition or subtraction to make sure they're the opposite signs. So I subtract 24. If I do that on the left, though, got to do it on the right. Well, now I get a little bit of something weird. Those cancel out, But so do the ones on the right. They actually cancel out also. That's fine. That's just the mathematical version of nothing is 0. Technically, we have 0 here also. I just haven't been writing a 0 down because we have something else on that side that we can just bring down instead of writing. Like, I don't need to write 20n plus 0. Well, 20n plus 0 is just 20n. That's why I don't write the plus 0. If we don't have anything, though, then we do have to write the 0. You can't leave a side completely blank. You got to put the 0. So that's the only reason we don't normally write that. So that's the 20n. Last step, if that's 20 times n, I need to divide that by 20. Well, if I divide that by 20, I have to divide that by 20. So it didn't really change our answer. It's still 0. So that's that full, long, more complex problem worked completely out. And you should have done another example. I think we did 15. I think I did for you. And I also believe, well, yeah, we did the day of the exit ticket. I did one right before the exit ticket that I think most of you probably wrote down as well. So you should have 3 more complex exit tickets you can, I'm sorry, big multi-step equations you can do. You can also just look up multi-step equations on YouTube and find anybody's multi-step equation videos. Forward to one where it's, looks something like there. If you do that, make sure you have distributive property on both sides. So something like this. Don't do it where I have distributive property on the same side. That'll match up better with the quiz. So like this one, number 20 is a good example. Number 20 has distributive property on both sides. I'm not going to go through and do that one. Maybe if we have time, we'll come back to it. Any questions, though, on that multi-step equation? You do, now's the time, not on Thursday. Because you won't be getting help on Thursday. You're on your own. All I'll do is if there's a mistake, I'll correct it. Or if there's something that's more of a clarification of what I'm asking for, then I'll clarify. But when I say solve for n, there's no clarification on those. You need to know how to do those. Like, don't even ask me, is that a subtraction sign or is that a negative sign? You should know that by now. They're the same. Subtracting a number is the same as adding a negative. So if you're not getting all of that, you need to watch some videos or come in for tutoring. Remember, I'll be here at lunch today. And then tomorrow I'll be here at lunch and at 2 p.m. And then Thursday at lunch and 2 p.m. again. All right, yeah, I'll just leave it on there. And this video will be recorded, so I'll put it, but there'll be 2 of them now that the computer died. But I'll make it a part 1 and a part 2. So it'll be this, it'll have the same date in it though. Today, what's the date? Actually, today's the 14th. So look under the 14th when you go in, and there'll be 2 parts to today's video. All right, so now we have to do the one that's the word problem that's on there. Actually, there's a couple word problems you have to know how to do. I think it's this one here. Yeah. All right. So we said, and I made it more interactive in the last class, but then it took forever, and frankly, I'm not sure that it helped any to do it and make it interactive. You need to understand 2 things. Well, you need to understand a bunch of things, but you need to know the definition of these 2 words. What does sum mean? That means it's the answer to an addition problem. So we're going to be adding these numbers together. What's consecutive mean? What do we say consecutive means? Gregory. Yeah, what comes next? Consecutive means what comes next. So if I write the number 3, what comes next? If I write the number 4, what comes next? We're going to actually talk about that briefly. I didn't talk about it in the last class, but I may talk about it. Maybe I'll. So those are consecutive numbers. In the other video, we even talked about consecutive even numbers would be a little different because it'd be like if 4 was your first number, 6 would be the next number. That's the next even number. wouldn't write 5 because we said if we say consecutive even numbers, it's got to be the next even number. So again, consecutive numbers could be 18, 19, and 20. Those are the, 19 comes after 18, 20 comes after 19. And then I'll do some that are a little higher. So those are consecutive numbers. That's the first definition you need to remember. The next thing we said, well, the sum of those three numbers means we're adding them up, and they need to equal that 531. So we said 3 plus 4 plus 5 should equal that, which it doesn't. So clearly those are not the right three numbers. None of these will be the right three numbers because none of them are going to add up to 531. So we want to solve and figure out. We can't just take 531 and divide by 3. That's not the math, but that does get you pretty close. When you do the quiz, do not try to solve for the numbers. It will mess up your equation. And the question is not solve for find the three numbers. Like here it says, what are the three numbers? That's not on the quiz. It just says create the equation. If you try to solve, almost without exception, you wind up making the wrong equation because somehow you try to put the answer, what the numbers are, in the equation, and they don't go in the equation. They're the answer. They're not part of the equation. They're the answer of the equation. So here's what you do. First, you have to define the variable. That means what's the variable stand for? What is it we don't know? Well, technically, we don't know the three numbers. So you could argue that we need three variables, x, y, and z. That's what we did before. I'm giving you the quick version. Problem is, if we say this, that's a z, not a 2. So you normally show that by doing that. So we'll do that. If we say that, we can't solve them. Too many variables. We can only solve an equation if it has one variable. So that doesn't work. It's right. Technically, creating that equation is right, and I'd probably give you some points for that if you defined each of the variables correctly. But I am going to say that x is the first number. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is, you have to do this on the quiz. So I am going to say x is the first number. But I don't want to say y is the second number and z is the third number because I can't solve that when I create the equation. What's true about every situation with consecutive numbers? How do I get from the first number to the second number? From 3 to 4 or from 18 to 19? Yeah, we said we just add 1, right? So I really don't need to make a variable for the second number. All I need to do is say, well, if I know this is if I do solve and come up with the first number, the way I could figure out the second number is just add 1 to that. So what am I going to write there? X plus 1 equals what? I knew somebody was going to do that. I did it. What did we just say? Are those like terms? Is X a like term with a 1?
No.
They have the same letter? No, you can't combine those. What does X plus 1 represent? No. No. Close. But what was Y? What did we say Y was originally? What was Y representing when I did that other equation? No. X is what? What does X stand for? Let's try it this way. What's X stand for? What's it represent?
The number.
What number? X is the first number. So what is X plus 1? Somebody said it, I believe, but I got to move on. If this is the first number, and if I add 1, no matter what the first number is, if I add 1 to it, that's the second number. Right? Because if this is the first number, if I then add 1 to the first number, it gives me the second number every time. So what do I write for the third number? I write X plus 2. Every time. If I'm going from the first number to the third number, I add 2. I add 2. I add 2. So if I want to represent the third number, I don't need a whole separate variable. I just take the first number and I add 2. Now we only have one variable. We can create an equation that we can solve if we only have one variable. So we would just say if this is the first number, oh, too far. There's the first number. I need to add that to the second number, but how do we represent the second number? No, not y. We want the same variable.
X.
Not x. That's the first number. X plus 1. I wrote it for you right there. Second number is x plus 1. Third number is going to be x plus 2. You guys need to go back and watch this. You may want to look up some other videos or something because there are 2 of these on there and the other one's harder than this one. If you're not getting that, go back, pause it, try to figure out what's coming up next. Watch it 10 times if you need to. I'm telling you, one of the problems is no different than this, other than the fact it's got a different number that they add up to. Now, the second problem is a little different, but if you can at least get one of them, you'll be all right. That's the equation. You don't have to solve it. I don't care what the numbers are. That's not the point of this. The point is you being, now, technically that's not full credit because we have like terms we can combine. Now we have same letter. X plus x plus x, I can combine to 3x. I have like terms when I just have numbers. So again, that was a struggle, and some of you still have no clue whatsoever. But you need to go back and watch that again, because if you can just regurgitate or copy that whole thing down in your notes, you have your notes for the quiz, it's open note. When you see a problem like that, you better be able to at least, even if you don't fully understand it, you better be able to pull certain parts out and just repeat it on the quiz. Because those 2 questions, I'm telling you, they're going to be worth quite a few points. If you leave them blank, your grade's going to suffer. And I've already told you, bombing this test will drop you 3 letter grades. If you think you're in good shape, don't bomb the test because you won't be. Any questions on that? I'm going to kind of move on. We'll come back to some equations, but I want to do another literal equation and another big multi-step equation. Again, really quickly, how to determine where you're at. The main thing I want you to point out, you're typically for a 2-step equation, you're just going to start off at a 2-step equation. You don't really have to recognize it other than your very first step, like your very first starting point. I'm hoping you just kind of know when you're at a 2-step equation, but again, term with a variable and a constant, and then on the other side, a constant. Term with a variable and a constant, on the other side, a constant. Same thing. Term with a variable constant, doesn't matter which side they're on, then on the other side, a constant. This is the one you need to be able to pick out. Because once you get to that step, the 3-step equation step, when you're doing one of those bigger equations, that's when you go to step 4 and you should be able to finish it out using the step sheet. You better have your notes and that step sheet on Thursday. If I don't see that stuff in front of you, I won't help. I'm not going to sit there and do the problem for you. I'll say, yeah, you're on step 2. You're on step 3. You're on step 4. I'm not going to do anything.
So you are going to say that?
Yeah, I'll tell you that. If I look at your equation, I'll tell you you're on step 3. But if you then can't look at the sheet because you've never ever tried to use it before and figure out what to do, that's not going to help you. That's why I say you need to be using this sheet. Yeah, that one was steps. Again, the way you pick out a 3-step equation on both sides, right and left, term with a variable, constant. 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 You can't combine anything. So you're at step 4. There's no like terms on the left to combine. There's no like terms on the right to combine. You don't try to combine like terms across. You don't just add those together. This is the stage where you finally do something below the equation. Again, if you just read step 4, it tells you exactly what to do. And then you'd have a 2-step equation. All right, where are we at? We might be back to doing another literal equation, I think, maybe. Yeah, well, remember we did that distance speed. That was a literal equation. That's what that's about. We did that yesterday also. We just said, well, the formula for distance is distance equals time times speed. Well, if I wanted to know what the formula for time is, I would just divide both sides by speed. Because when we Google it, we don't care how far it is. We want to know how long it takes us to get there. So we'd rather have a formula for time than a formula for distance. So that's how we did it. And then that led us into doing literal equations somewhere. What is it? There, literal equations there. Oh, there, we did it again there. Yeah, so that was the literal equations lesson. If you want to really quickly, try to do those two on the right. They're in your notes, but just don't look at your notes. Just try to do them without your notes. I mean, you can use the step sheet, but don't like look at the answer and just copy it down. That doesn't do you any good to prepare. And then we'll do one more big multi-step equation. So those two are pretty similar, I think, to what's on the quiz as far as literal equations go. So it's all based on which variable you're solving for. Remember that. That determines which term is the variable term. Everything else is a constant. Once you know what the variable term is, all the other ones are constants. And then the steps are the same. Start with a constant on the same side as the variable term. Do the opposite. First time it's addition or subtraction for the opposite. Second time it's multiplication or division. Normally division. So if you're ever not sure what your last step is, divide. Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple minutes on this, and we're going to do a multi-step. So you got 2 minutes. You're not trying right now, and you're just copying stuff down. You're going to bomb with this. No doubt. What's that? No, yeah, not a good bomb. They're like 20% bomb. Like low F bomb. Not as in you are the bomb. No, not like that. I don't have time on a review day to walk around and check everybody. We have too much to get through and it was the day before. So you have to be accountable. I'm worried about you, bud. I'm worried about all three of you with heads down. You bomb this test, it is tough to come back. Not you, Danny. Yeah, I got 3 people that haven't looked up in 10, 15 minutes probably. And haven't written much down at all day long. Not like the last exit ticket where I sit there and I help you. I will say, you should have paid attention. You should have notes. I know what to tell you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just solve them out. Here's the process, though. Again, you get partial credit on anything that isn't multiple choice. So if you can do some steps, you'll get some credit. If M is what I'm solving for, then that's the variable term. That's the one that has the variable I'm solving for. Everything else is a constant, so I need to start with the constant that's on the same side as the variable term. So that would be the subtract h or the negative h. It should have it on your pink sheet. Add or subtract, just make sure you have the opposite signs. If I do it on one side, I got to do it on the other side. And just remember, when you have a bunch of variables, odds are you're not combining anything. You're not doing any math. You're just going to rewrite whatever the step was, rewrite it out like that. That's all you can do. I cannot combine a number and a term that has a variable. So my last step, I bring that down because I didn't do anything with it. I need to get rid of that k. So if k is being multiplied times m, the way I get rid of it is do the opposite. I divide by k. Well, if I do it on one side, I do it on the other side.
That's the answer.
That's it. All you can do. So you could write m equals, this would be, just so I know what your final answer is. I won't sit there and look forever for your final answer. I have a feeling some kids think if they write a bunch of different things at the end and they don't like specifically tell which one is the answer, they think I'll give them credit. No, it's the opposite. You don't have one thing that I see as an answer, you don't get credit for a final answer. Automatically.
Like if I just have 11 plus h, k under.
Kids will do this. They'll write that and they're like, oh, well, am I supposed to divide by that or am I supposed to divide by m? So they'll do this. They'll write that over there, and then they'll do this. I shouldn't have erased that. Yeah, then they'll say, or maybe it's this. They'll write both of those next to each other, thinking I'll give them credit because they got one of them right. No, it's the opposite.
Like if I get the right answer and it's like that, I get credit for it?
If you just have just the right answer, yeah. But if people write down a whole bunch of things trying to get credit, no, I don't. You kind of know that, like anybody can guess several things and eventually get it right. You need to know how to do it. I might give them some partial credit. All right. Did you get my email? They're doing their quiz Thursday and Friday for the classes. So.
Yeah, as far as I know.
So yeah, that's the final answer. I'm not going to rewrite it with the M, but that would have been the final answer. So
I
yeah,
don't have to put the m equal that.
you're supposed to, but
Do you want me
again,
to?
yeah, I want you to. Yeah. Would I take off for it? If you forgot? Probably not. Unless it was not clear what your final answer was. If that's the last thing you write, I'd be okay. But I'd rather you write M equals 11 plus H divided by K. All right, so again, if I'm solving for J, that's the variable term. I start on that side then. Well, that's positive, so I need to subtract it. Got to do it on both sides. Yeah, same steps. Nothing changes. I bring that down. Don't forget negatives. If you have a subtraction sign in it, that means you're going to keep that sign as the negative.
Why'd you put a T?
I know. I'm glad somebody's paying attention. I'm glad somebody's paying attention and willing to say something. Last step, typically it is division. Don't forget the negative sign. So your final answer is that subtract W divided by negative Q. You actually wouldn't see that answer on a multiple choice question like the SAT. They do something else to it, but I'm not worried about that.
As long as it's not good.
All right, so we'll do one more multi-step equation. Well, you're not going to have phone time. But... Whoa! We got 4 minutes. Well, you might. I forgot. That's a little fast. If you get done, yeah, that's fine. If you get it done, again, well, but then everybody's just going to not do it. And I'm not going to have time to walk around and check everybody that's not doing it. Just do this one, no phones, and then in the last minute or so, we'll take them out. Since I got through everything. So where was the big multi-step equations? Here? No, that's literal equations. That's too much to do. Yeah, I don't want to give you that one. That's pretty intense. Shoot, where is it? Is that it? That's a two-step equation. All right, let me just go through so I'll find it. That's a, oh, that was the one for the quiz. That's a good one. There. Let me put that down. That should. Yeah, I was gonna write on it if I didn't put that down. So there you go. Try to do that one. That's a pretty, again, it's the same one that was the exit ticket last week, the practice one for the exit ticket. So you've already got it solved out one place, but that's fine. Now you should have the answer to it. I'll solve it out also, but if for some reason we run short on time, you've already got that one solved out. But that's a good example of the hardest one on the quiz. If you can even get most of that right, you're in good shape. Phone up, please, Kira. It's like the third or fourth time I've not directly said it to you, but when I said people are peeking, you were that peeking. Wow. Put it up, backpack. Even though I might let you have it, I shouldn't let you have it out because several people are doing that. So I believe on the quiz I did the same thing where I made one of the distributive properties pretty easy. There's no negatives involved. So as long as you remember to multiply times both numbers, you don't have to worry about any positive and negative rules. Everything's positive. You just have to then worry about how to combine the like terms. Then the other side, kind of like this, you're going to have to figure out how to handle the positives and negatives. Do not leave these big problems blank. Do something. Even if you have a lot of wrong steps, you might have some right steps. Like if you get the whole first half of the problem wrong, but then using the wrong numbers, you do the correct steps past that, I give you credit for that. So don't ever leave them blank. I'll repeat that on quiz day, and yet some people will still leave them blank. Because once you get it down to a two-step equation, you should be able to solve that part correctly, even if the final answer is actually wrong. You did the two-step equation part right, I'll give you credit for that. Quite a bit of credit. I told you that's the minimum you need to know how to do is two-step equation. All right, I'm going to go ahead. Oh yeah, I got to solve it out. So I'm just going to do it real fast. You can just check your work. You should already have it. If not, remember it's recorded. I don't use any addition or subtraction signs to start. I mean, you can, but again, you got to get, oh man, boy, that was actually closer than I thought. All right, it'll be on the recording. I'm going to finish it out. I've already done it once. But... Don't forget your notes for the quiz. So then we would just add the 9 on. We don't really do anything with that for a while. So when I go to solve, that's when I create the addition and subtraction signs. Don't do anything with negative 11. Positive 5 times positive 2n would be positive, so that becomes addition. Do not forget the n. Too many people are dropping variables in the middle of the problem. Positive 5 times positive 6 would become a positive answer, so I'd write plus 30. Now I do the same thing on the right side. A negative times a positive is a negative. Again, don't forget the variable. A negative times a positive, so negative 3 times negative 7, I'm sorry, a negative times a negative would be a positive, so that becomes addition, so plus 21. And then I just bring the 9 down. Now I'm at step 2. I combine like terms on the left only. I don't care about what's on the right. So I say, okay, do I have anything with the same letter? Well, no. All I have is one term with an N. But I do have just numbers. So I can combine those. That gives me positive 19 plus 10n. Again, don't forget the variable. I'm going to now skip to step 3. Do I have any like terms on the right? Yes, again, I don't have any other n's, but I have two numbers. So negative 12n plus 30. Now I am at step 4. This is the first time I do anything underneath the equation. You'll notice I didn't do anything right underneath the equation. If you need to combine like terms somehow, don't do it underneath the equation. Do it on a separate piece of paper or a separate part of your paper. Then put the answer back up. Like do 30 plus negative 11 equals 19, and then bring that 19 back in like that. All right, I'm trying to get this done fast. So Now, step 4 says start on the right side. Get rid of the variable term by adding or subtracting, and you got to do the opposite. That's what we would do. Make sure you then put that underneath the term with the variable on the left when you do the same thing on the other side. Do not put it underneath the 19. We can't combine it with the 19. So 19 plus 22n equals 30. Now you just have a two-step equation. So again, if this is the variable term, then I need to start with the 19. So I subtract 19, subtract 19, gives me 11, 22n. If that's multiplication, I need to divide. So we get n equals 1/2. I went through that fast, but you guys can pause the video. So.